Welcome back, everybody, to Clearwater Jazz Holiday's Young Lions Jazz Master Virtual Sessions. I'm Steve Weinberger, CEO of the Clearwater Jazz Holiday Foundation, and I'm really excited to have our good friend Jeremy Carter back with us today on a topic that he's calling intermediate tenor sax. We're recording these sessions for the purposes of Clearwater Jazz Holiday education and outreach. If you have questions, feel free to use the chat feature or the raise your hand feature. We'll get those questions to Jeremy. If you have feedback for any of these sessions or a topic you'd like us to cover, please don't hesitate to send that information to info@clearwaterjazz.com. Check out all of these sessions at the education and outreach page at clearwaterjazz.com. And check out the new resource that we call the Studio, which archives all of the past full recorded video sessions, as well as some really cool session materials and curated playlists from the guest musicians. And if listening is your thing rather than watching, we have launched the new Young Lions Jazz Master Virtual Sessions podcast, which is available wherever you stream your podcasts on most major platforms. And we're working with this wonderful team of educators and musicians to build this really incredible free resource for everybody to enjoy. We thank our sponsors, Blue Water Wealth Management at Steward Partners, for helping to present the studio, and our good friends at Marine Max Clearwater for helping to present the podcast series. Jeremy Carter is one of the most sought after saxophonists in the Tampa Bay area. He's such an incredible performer. He's no stranger to Clearwater Jazz education and outreach, and he's traveled all over the place. He's shared the stage with some of today's top acts and has several sold-out performances of his own. He is so entertaining, so engaging, and we consider ourselves really lucky to have him participating with our programs and specifically these virtual sessions. Jeremy Carter, it's so good to see you, my friend. The stage is all yours.
Steve, thanks for the introduction. I don't know what to do now. I'm blushing a little bit. I don't know if you can tell, but my good friend Lee Mainberg attending here. And thanks to everybody who's checking out our Clearwater Jazz Holiday education and outreach page here. If you're looking to brush up on your music pursuit and journey, or if you're just looking to advance it, you're in the right place, and you've already taken some of the best steps you can to assist in that cause. So today we're going to be doing some intermediate tenor sax stuff. I'm constantly working. I'm constantly in the woodshed. One thing you have to know is that no matter where you are in the process, the journey continues. There's always something to do. There's always another wrinkle. There's another layer of the onion, you could say. So yeah, I've been working on a lot of stuff here lately. I just started doing a little search for some mouthpieces, and so yeah, I guess that leads us into our first topic I want to try to cover, and it's your equipment. I know in my introductory video, I talked about it a little bit, but just in terms of, how you would address, like what you would need to do to get more familiar with your equipment. After you've done that, selecting the right equipment is important. When you're playing the tenor sax, in the musical world has always been likened to like the cello. It's a very vocal instrument. And so I've always been of the belief that you should, have a very singing-like quality when you're approaching the tenor sax. Not just that. Like if you play an instrument where you're able to play melodies, anything other than, even drummers can play a little bit of melodies depending on how they tune their toms and stuff like that. But the idea is to really focus on the lines that you're trying to deliver, much in the same way that you would speak to someone. You know, depending on how good an orator you are, you know you're kind of careful about the words that you select, and the same thing happens when you're playing music. If you're doing a good job of telling a story, you know, right? So, so before I get into that, let me cover the equipment. Like I said, I've been researching a few different manufacturers for some mouthpieces and reeds and stuff like that. So, one thing I can suggest to you, if you're new or if you're in the middle, wherever you are, if you have any doubts or curiosity about equipment, like don't believe any of the stuff you read online. Most of it is just snake oil. You have to go out and try stuff yourself. You have to just experiment with gear, because what works for one person may not work for another person. Like I said, it's very personal. It's like asking somebody what's the best shoe size, right? The one that fits you, right? So yeah, I've been working with this company up in Jacksonville. It's a really small company, mom and pop. John Thomas Woodwinds. They sent me a bunch of really great mouthpieces with different personalities, and so I've been able to sit here for the last couple of weeks and just kind of sort through them and try them out. And even, you know, I've been playing for 30 years, and this is still a part of the process. It's not that I had a problem with my gear. It was just that, you know, I mean, if you're curious, you know what I mean? Like, I loved my previous setup. I was playing on like an Oda Link style tenor sax mouthpiece, which is really typical, really common. I know you can just go through the annals of tenor sax players, and you'll see a lot of Oda Links. They're one of the most popular mouthpieces that you can buy for tenor sax. Chris Potter, John Coltrane, Ben Webster, Sonny Rollins, I mean, Dexter Gordon. You can't really find too many great jazz players who haven't played on their own link. And that's what I was playing for the last 10 years. And I picked these up, and they were really great. They allowed me to do a lot of the same things. They're rubber, obviously. I don't know if you can see these. And I also paired it up with a Rovner platinum ligature. I have a couple others that I was using. This one's really cool. It's like a Roberto's wooden. It's actually made out of cocobolo wood. Or no, these are ebony, the dark ebony wood. These are really cool, really colorful. But they're ring style. And when you put it on there, you don't have the ability to adjust where you put the ligature on the table. You know, some people prefer it a little closer to the tip, and some people prefer a more recessed approach, a la Dexter. And so while I do love that ring ligature, one of the problems I had with it was that some of the thicknesses of some reeds were different. So I wasn't able to adjust the reed or adjust the ligature as I wanted. So I paired this mouthpiece up with a Rovner Platinum, which is really nice. It's Rovner's only metal ligature that they make. And yeah, it's really smooth. So yeah, after 10 years of playing metal, I think I've made the switch to rubber, and I'm really happy about it. And so I say all that to say that when you're going through your gear, when you're selecting your gear, don't be afraid to experiment. Let your curiosity and imagination run wild, because you just never know what you'll run into. And you know, honestly, you want every advantage that you can get to achieve the sound that you want to. So that's a little bit about gear and what I've been doing with that. I'm also playing, which I have been for a long time, Brigatti Gold, 3 softs with this is a John Thomas 120 tip opening, which is a 9 for you tenor players, which is kind of big, but I'll do some playing here in a little bit, and you'll kind of see that. Although it's big, you can control it. It's got a really solid core. one of the things that I know, like I said, I've played on a link for 10 years, so I've been happy with it. I've recorded on television. I've done many albums in that time, done concerts and listened back, and really been pleased with the results that I get with it. But you know, the older you get, sometimes you don't want to work so hard to achieve the same goal. And I think that's one of the things that I was so struck by with these John Thomas pieces. And, you know, I tried them. I didn't really have any expectations. Like I said, I was in a really good position. I was already really happy with what I was playing on. So I didn't really have any expectations for trying these. And then they sent me like 5 of them in the mail. And every one I put on was slightly different. They sent me some different facings. Like I have an 8, a couple 8 stars. I don't know, maybe a couple 9s, couple 120s. A lot of mouthpieces, which is very kind of them. Shout out to John Thomas. Mouthpieces up in Jacksonville. Super kind, super easy to work with. And so yeah, I got these mouthpieces, and every single one of them was just slamming. I mean, like I played on them the whole first day. I just got a tooth removed at oral surgery last week, and my dentist, Doc Glenn Seradar, another local St. Pete guy, good friend of mine on the local scene, he was so kind to help me out with the tooth, and he basically extracted this tooth. It wasn't really ready to come out. So anyway, I'm in ridiculous pain, like the day after I received these mouthpieces, and I was under doctor's instructions not to play, because of course that was one of the first things I was curious about. When am I going to be able to play, Doc? Not about the food, not about the water, not about the aftercare, saline rinse. When can I play? So he's like, well, you know, just play it by ear, you know, pack some gauze in there. And I'm swollen, my face is hanging halfway off. I'm blood and stuff. It's just, it's disgusting. And I really didn't know what to expect. So, I mean, I rode my motorcycle to the dentist's office, all the vibrations the whole way home. I'm dying, right? So anyway, the next day I get these mouthpieces, and I feel like I've been in a skirmish. And, but I mean, I just had to try these pieces. So I put them on. I'm in a lot of pain. And just from the first couple notes, I was like, wow, there's something here. And then obviously, yeah, the next thing you know, I played the better part of that day after having oral surgery. I was just so happy with these mouthpieces. I wrote him an email that night telling him how happy I was, and started the dialogue and back and forth. And we're going to be working together here soon to you know, maybe develop some other products. So that's really exciting as well. So anyway, so that's the gear and what's kind of been going on. I guess the first thing I want to cover in this session is I talked a little bit about storytelling, and in this intermediate session, I want to kind of build a bridge to the advanced session that we're going to do, which is going to cover more harmonic stuff. Like we'll cover some more, as the title would suggest, advanced concepts. But today, we're going to give you some really, really easy building blocks, no matter where you are in your level of play. What it will do is to serve to build a healthy foundation for improvisation and just being free with your instrument, regardless of the genre that you're playing with. You're going to be able to just build a foundation for a solid woodwind technique and your approach to your craft. So one of the first things I would suggest is just, if you can, sing a melody. Think of any melody, like pick a song. It's really hard to do. Every time I do a gig, it's really, like, if we're doing a jam session or something, musicians are like, okay, what are we going to play? And then, you know, 2 or 3 minutes later, I'm really bad about that. I know a million tunes, but if you ask me to call one off on a bandstand, usually the tumbleweeds and all that stuff. But what you want to do is just sing a song, like select a template that you want to begin to work, right? So, yeah, for example, if you wanted to do, if you're thinking about something like let's just say a C minor concept, right? You're just thinking like, so I'm using extensions there, right? With the 9 and in the 7, right? If you just play like a C minor, just think of a line. Just hum something. Immediately, I'm thinking Bodero, right? Right. So when you're doing this, when you do this exercise, it will allow you to play what you're hearing. You know, I've seen, Barry Harris, one of the great clinicians, was saying like you can't play it if you can't hear it. And so I think a lot of times people get misled into believing that jazz is just free. You can just do whatever you want. You can just kind of wing it. But there's some truth to that. But if you want to be an effective communicator, you can't speak like that. Musically, you can't speak like that. And so you want to try to really play ideas that come from within and not just wiggling your fingers. So I guess what I'll do, I can't really play piano and sax at the same time, but I guess I'll just take the concept of a C minor, right, and just play with it, like a tone poem, right? And I'm trying to communicate ideas that are original. Now, you don't have to stay in C, right? You can go wherever you want to, but that's what's happening, right? 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 So the whole time I'm pretty much thinking, I'm still like, regardless of how far I went away from the center, like in my mind, I'm still thinking of a way to try to resolve, like some type of way to get back to the C, whether it's 2-5-1, right? A 2-5-1 thing or some neoclassical thing where, you're doing all kinds of different movements in there. So as free as that was, like I'm still moving through there and I'm singing, I'm thinking about these concepts. So one tool that you can use that I've used for a long time, I think I can't even remember where I initially discovered the concept, but a lot of guys are doing it. A lot of modern players are using this idea of triads. So if you're doing a minor concept like that, like in C, what you could do, and there's lots of instructional material out there. I think Walt Weiskopf has in fact, I know he does. I have his book, Walt Weiskopf, a few other guys. I know Chad Lefkowitz Brown has some intervallic stuff with triad exercises and things like that. But they're really useful to kind of get you out of modal playing. They're useful in just many different settings. You can, like, regardless of the modal value, you can use triads really effectively. So I guess so like I was saying, we were in C. If any minor key, right? So if you're in C, what you want to think of is like the 4 and 5 of or you're thinking about so you're thinking about the minor third and the fourth, right? If you're in a minor key, so our C or the C concert, right? So what you want to do is build your triads off of your third, off of the third scale degree and the fourth scale degree, right? That's just 1, 3, 5, right? 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? So you want to use those as your basis for building triads. And these are just basic triads. Once you've established these, we'll get into ways to mutate them and add some different colors, but this is just really basic stuff, right? So you're taking the fourth or the third and fourth scale degree of any minor key, as we are here at C. I'm just building a major triad off of that third scale degree. And then off of the fourth, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? That's a really cool color, right? So I'll just demonstrate something real quick. Right? So all I'm doing with that is just using inversions of the same two triads, right? The first one being the E flat, first inversion, and then F, first inversion, or a root position, and then you're going back to E flat, F, B flat, or E flat, back to F. Right? So you're just using those triads to mix it up. So I'll try to do this as best as I can with the sustain pedal, right? Right? So that's just one way that you can color this idea or color that chord with one single set of triads, right? Now, what happens, right, if I take this, if I take the E flat chord, right, and this is where you would start to add some color into your chordal concept, right? So you have the C minor, right, and you have the E flat and F. But what if I took the B flat in that scale and made it a B? So now I'm going. Right? So now you're thinking. Right? Immediately, by changing one color, or changing one note, you have a completely different color in that scale, right? So I'll play one, I'll just drop a C chord, a C minor chord, and just mess around with it with the root or with the E flat and the F standard. And then I'll drop another one and then demonstrate with adding the color of the B natural there, like an augmented idea, right? Okay. And then with a B instead of a B flat in that same type of a sequence. Right? One note in that sequence totally changes the whole vibe and the whole feel, like the way that, like, there's a certain suspense there. or just color, like however you want to think about it. But it certainly is noticeable. So that's one way that you can like really deliberately like decide to add or remove different colors within an established harmonic thing. And I don't want to like get too far into this, this being an intermediate session, but yeah, like using triads as a way to work your way around chord or sequences of chords. And that's the next thing, right? So I was just demonstrating over one chord. You can also do this, like for example, like you can take like there's a couple different chords. Like say I use like a G flat 7, right? Right. You can also use this like when you have a chord. Like a lot of times you'll see in jazz notation, you'll have a chord on top of a different root. And so when you're playing, that's essentially like as a sax player, that's essentially what you're doing. Like you hear a root note being dropped, but the way that you interpret it is going to kind of dictate how how you move through the series. And it's really important to like have a good mix of playing inside, playing outside, being inside the form and outside, just for the sake of variety. You don't want too much of any one thing. And there's a lot of different things you can do, like the way that you interpret the rhythmic value, your dynamics, like how well you mix in soft and loud. If you hear a good player, like there's usually a good mix of soft and loud, right? So yeah, you want to use all these things in balance, right? So that chord I was dropping in, what was that? G flat, right? Right? What if I flatten to 5, right? Right. So one note can really alter the way that you think. Like that was just another, like it was just a scale, right? I just took a G flat 7 and just flattened the 5, right? Now the same thing that we were just talking about with the triadic approach, you can do the same no matter what the values. You can do with the dominant chord, you can do with minor chords, with major chords. They really allow you to get in and out of stuff, in and out of chord sequences in a really interesting and colorful way, right? It's not just standard. That's kind of how you set yourself apart in terms of your harmonic approach and your musical concept, like how you hear it. In terms of like the dynamics, like are you like if you think about a sax player like Lee Konitz or like a Stan Getz, they had a sound concept versus like a Jan Garbarek. You know what I mean? Like Jan Garbarek has a thing too. So all these things are really important when you're trying to develop a good, clean sound, right? So I guess what I'll do, let me see, I'll select a tune and just kind of work through some triadic stuff. Really simple, nothing too crazy. Let me see. I guess I can do like Autumn Leaves, something like that. It's the first song that comes to mind. I'm terrible with it, but I'll try to work some triadic stuff in there without going too nuts with it, but just some kind of basic ways to interpret those changes with no accompaniment, which is also something that you should be able to do. You should like when you're playing in a setting, just because you're, playing the sax doesn't mean you should be unaware of what all your other musicians are doing, right? So you should have a really good concept of what the drummer is doing, a good feel for time. Like, not like you need to know how to play drums well, but you should understand the drummer's responsibility in order to understand how you can interact with him to enhance the band's presence, right? The same thing goes for your bass player. He's walking the bass lines there. He's playing bass function, but there's a lot of rhythmic stuff happening in there. How he and the drummer lock in is going to kind of determine how the band sounds. And then you, as a melody instrument or a lead instrument, how you interact with all your other players is going to determine the group concept, right? So it's not just like you going out like, oh, it's my time to shine. Because I mean, honestly, in a lot of ensembles, like the sax player or the vocalist is not playing all the time. And so how you enter, present yourself and enter into that concept, and how you exit from it is just, it's just as important as what you play. And you can take that same concept into the lines, the melodic figures that you speak, right? Like how you get into them and get out of them is really important, which leads me to talk about the use of space, right? A lot of times guys are just always concerned with what to play. A lot of times, not just me, some of the most effective statements made in music come after the pause, right? Because it's like eating ginger when you're eating sushi, right? You cleanse the palate, you cleanse your ear, right? With that space, you allow the moment, the band, the space in the room, the concert hall to breathe, right? And then when you make that statement, it's much, much, much more effective. So yeah, I'll play around with autumn leaves here, and just try to incorporate some of the concepts that we talked about so far. And while I'm doing that, if there's anybody out there, if you have any questions, please feel free to contact Steve, or you can contact me on Facebook. And for our future listeners, the same invitation is extended to you. If you hear something that you're interested in, if you have some questions about something I may mention, don't hesitate to let us know, and we'll try to take care of that. Yeah. So yeah, I was just working through the changes to Autumn Leaves. That was in G. You know, I just started off just stating the melody. You know, if you're, I think one of the things that a lot of players or just artists in general should understand that, like, in that particular context or in this setting, you know, when you have the opportunity to perform and all the things you already like, just take your time. You know, don't rush. You know, I mean, sometimes there is a need to rush. Like, you should have a sense of urgency. Like, you want to convey some sense of of importance and urgency, right? But that's only for effect. Like, in essence, you should be like really relaxed and just really cool in order to have the type of clarity necessary to communicate the ideas and to form the ideas that are necessary to achieve whatever end you're trying to effectively communicate the sound in your head. So yeah, triads are something that I use a lot. Obviously, some of my heroes, Chris Potter, there's many of them. John Coltrane, Michael Brecker, Sonny Stitt, Sonny Rollins. All these guys have different qualities in their playing that is really intriguing to me and pleasing to me. You know, I love listening to them, and yeah, there's such a wealth of information uh, from which you can draw in terms of like assembling all the tools necessary to put together a proper toolkit and to perform effectively. And so, yeah, I mean, I try to use triads. I listen a ton. Like, I listen every day. And there's something that I try to get from all my heroes, right? Um, Not so much in the sense of I do some transcribing and like I have some written solos that I'll try to play along with. Notice I said try to. But yeah, I don't find that stuff is like as useful as just trying to understand like the essence of where they're coming from. Like you can go through the Omnibook, which I had here. I was working on last night. Um, and you can learn Charlie Parker licks. If you go through there, if you read through the Omnibook, you'll see a lot of similarities and a lot of patterns, a lot of tendencies. A lot of these figures are very similar. And so then you kind of have to go into a little bit more analysis and dissect some of these things a little bit further and to figure out why he was doing these things. And you'll see that a lot of the same similarities occur, whether it was like just his understanding of the chord sequences or him using his ear or a combination of the two. These tendencies seem to be there, right? I mean, for some that's good, for others not so much. Like if you hear a player like Coltrane, like he seemingly never repeated himself, was on a mission to never play the same thing. But I only mentioned Bird to say that if you wanted to initially learn the language, it's good to go through there and dissect it and just to understand all of the patterns that exists within traditional bebop changes or any changes. You'll find these changes anywhere, in church, in pop music. You know, the 2-5-1s are ubiquitous, right? You'll find a lot of the same chord changes in a lot of different kinds of music. So transcribing note for note is really important. But if you're just listening along with the record and you can kind of feel the vibe of what they're doing, you know, the intended, like, so when you're transcribing, you have to slow it down. Well, you don't have to, but it's easier if you do. And I think when you do that sometimes, or people that do that a lot, you lose the intent. Like once you bring it back up to full speed, yeah, you may be able to play all the notes, but you miss the energy, you miss the intent of the phrase, right? You want your music to have meaning, right? So getting all that stuff is important. Like Charlie Parker said, to quote Charlie Parker, learn all that stuff and then forget about it, right? And just play. You know, it's really important to have like a childlike attitude when you're playing and be really free with it. So learning tunes is really important, along with transcribing. All the language is there. A lot of these figures, a lot of the bebop idioms or the jazz idioms, the little phrases that are common. Most of these things are found in just playing bebop, or playing the heads rather. Concepts like enclosure, you know, that's something else you can try. I'll mess with that a little bit just to demonstrate what I'm talking about. But the concept of enclosure is really really effective to. I mean, I use it in terms of creating like a misdirection. You know, it's tough for me to talk about some of these things because I never really put these thoughts into words. Like, you know, I study the play, you know, I take notes and I do my work and my practice, and I rarely think to put some of these things into words. So excuse me. But yeah, enclosure is the idea that I use frequently to create a sense of misdirection, right? Because you have, you know, you don't want your solos or you don't want your playing to be too angular, right? And what I mean by that, it just goes in one direction and it goes the other direction, right? That's boring. That's just boring, right? So I'll use enclosure to kind of create some sense of, to kind of confuse the ear almost. But it's also just hip. It lends itself to so many things. Like you can use it when you're using enclosure. You can ghost note, you know, like a ghost note, like you hit the note and then like the next one is less present, right? You can ghost notes using enclosure. You can change direction. You can change harmonic values, right? So here's just an example of using enclosure. So I'm gonna do like a concert F arpeggio, right? But I'm gonna enclose the notes, right? So just these notes here. Right? So I just took, that was just a concert F arpeggio using enclosure. And so if I want to start playing blues, I can just use that one concept and then I'm off to the races. I saw this, I saw a master class, a workshop that Chris Potter was doing. And he was kind of talking about the same thing I was just saying, like a lot of the things that he practices, it's kind of tough to put into words sometimes because you're not using language when you're thinking about these things. When you're playing, it's really tough to explain what it is, the things, the mechanisms and levers that I pull in order to make what happens happen. But he was just saying that initially, and I thought it was pretty striking to me. He was saying that when you start, and there's a moment, you always know, like when you get ready to, you know, like the band's cooking, and maybe you're like the second or third soloist, right? And you know it's your time to give you the nod, you're coming, right? And so there's that moment where you're getting ready to play, and that moment is really important in how you and you have to establish yourself. Like it's kind of like that thing, first impression. But Potter was saying that he wants to get one thing, just one item to use to get the thing going, and then you're going. You know, I was telling my wife yesterday, like and I've said this many times over the years, like when you're playing, when you're playing, it happens too quickly for you to think about um, too many things at once. So what you want to do is simplify things as much as possible. And yeah, to finish the Potter quote, he was just saying that all you really need is, or all he was looking for, all he likes to look for when he gets started is one either rhythmic figure, one harmonic concept, or maybe something that applies to what had just happened, you know, something tangible in that moment, right? The player, whatever was happening in the music right before you started, find an element in there, find something. Or maybe somebody sneezed in the room, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, you use that, like have a little outburst, you know, and then you're using that, and then you're off, right? And so I said all that to just emphasize the point that when you're playing, you know, all these things, you can't think about too much when you're playing. You want to just sing that singular line. If you're a sax player, you know, piano players have a lot of different things to do, but have that clear single line in your head. Like, it's, I mean, yeah, there are things, there's a harmonic extensions and substitutions and ways that you can manipulate the chords that will occur. Like one particular note you'll hear, and that will occur naturally, but you should proactively just relax and try to simplify things as much as possible. And so the reason that came to mind was because of the that enclosure idea that I was using. Immediately, I just thought like 1-3-5, just like Wynton Marsalis, like he'll do the same thing. He loves the blues, right? And so, or I know I was doing F, right? So if I'm just gonna take that enclosure idea and just go with it, right? And then you'll kind of see what's possible with that, right? Yeah. So I took that one enclosure idea and just started to mess around with the blues form, blues in F, but just keeping it really loose with the same. I try to incorporate some elements of enclosure, but right once you start, you just go with trust your ear and trust your work, trust the work that you put in. Uh, if you understand the chordal sequences as they lie, then just trust your instincts. Don't try to think about it too much. Have some fun with it. That's the most important part. That's kind of why we do this thing. It's one of the most important. Like music is just such an effective tool. It's so important in our society, and I think it's something that we desperately need. So yeah, if you hear something, just trust your instincts. You know, another concept that you can think about using is staying rhythmically valid. I don't know if I covered this in my first session, but if not, I'll just go over it. There's a couple principles that I like to keep in mind when I'm working, not so much when I'm performing, but I want to try to work in some rhythmic stuff, like whatever it is. I want to try to incorporate something interesting, rhythmic, that I'm working on. I want to have some type of harmonic, right, concept that I work on, whether it's new or something that's already familiar, right? I want to like try to work in some type of dynamic component, right? Like whether that means just going all out that day, the dynamics or triple forte, right? Or mixing it up, right? And I also want to try to use some type of melodic element. As a sax player, in some other instruments is not as important, like the drums. But as a sax player, being able to play melodic or play melodies, not necessarily ones that are already established, being able to play in a melodic fashion is something that I try to work on, right? And these are just things that I will randomly, you know what I mean? Like if like for today, my rhythmic component could be, trying to work on pentatonics, which is another one, another thing that you can definitely make great use of um, when you're playing. Um, the pentatonic concept, you can incorporate your rhythmic and your harmonic thing into, and you can wrap that into one ball. What I mean, if you don't know, when I say pentatonic, it's like a 5-note scale, right? And Jerry Bergonzi, another great tenor player, one of my heroes, he said that the pentatonic scale could be any 5 notes. But typically, when you're talking about a major pentatonic, you're talking about the 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6, right? So, right? So this is something that you can use and that you should have great use of, right? Um, so that's like a major pentatonic, but then you can also think about pentatonics as like your blues scale without the flat 5, right? So I'll play a major pentatonic and then I'll play like a minor pentatonic, like you would refer to it, like a blues scale without the flat 5. So that's also considered a pentatonic scale, right? And all I'm doing is just playing the blues scale and omitting the flat 5. Here's a blues scale with the flat 5. Right? So that was a major pentatonic there at the end. And ultimately the goal is you want to be able to get these things up to speed. When I'm mentioning these things, like ultimately, right, until you get it, you want to take it slow. You wouldn't believe how slowly I was reading through the Omni book last night. And a lot of these songs I know, but I was doing it slowly. I was telling my wife and son, it's actually easier to play this stuff fast, right? Because when you're playing it slower, you have an opportunity to think about it and get in the way. You know what I mean? It's actually easier to fly. I was playing Donald Lee or something, and that passage right there at the end, I was trying to play it. I was cooking through it fast, but then the second I slowed it down, I was fumbling all over the place. I had to think about it, right? So I was playing like the last A section of Donna Lee, like right. I was playing that fine, and then as soon as I slowed it down, it was like the wheels kind of fell off. You know, I was well into my evening, but that's no excuse. Right. So yeah, the point was when you're getting these concepts. So first of all, let me just I'm kind of breezing through these things. Like I said, if you have any questions, if I mentioned something, I know I'm not stopping to like dive into every topic. I'm throwing a lot of stuff out there because I want to try to be as informative as possible. But if there's something that I've said you want to dive into a little deeper, please feel free to drop any questions or anything like that. So as far as the major pentatonics, I just played a concert E flat major. I was using concert E flat, my F. So the idea is to just start off slow, but ultimately you want to have the facility or the ability to do these things as quickly, as need be for effect on stage. Ultimately, this, if you're doing all this stuff, you're practicing all these things. You want to be able to implement them when you're playing with other musicians. If you're just practicing all this stuff and you can't use it, then you're probably practicing the wrong stuff, right? So I'll just go through some pentatonics chromatically, and one of the things that I try to focus on is just keeping everything smooth. Everything should sound the same. What I mean by that, like some people are like, oh, what's your best key? Like, I don't know. I play seriously when I do stuff. Yeah, all of them, right? I mean, yeah. What's the best shoe size, right? At least I try. I try to go through the horn. Like if I come up with an idea, I'll try to take it around the horn. Sometimes straight up to chromatic scale, but sometimes at random just to give myself a challenge. So I'll work through the pentatonic scale here chromatically, just so you can kind of get a sense of how you can maybe build some exercises for yourself. Right? So you're going through there and you want everything to kind of sound the same in terms of the way you articulate the value of each note. You don't want any like wobbly sections like I had there in the middle. But I mean, in all seriousness, like in terms of like the tone, the way that the horn is speaking, like when you're working up the chromatic scale, you don't want there to be parts of it that are more present than others or less present. I mean, if anything, like I like to think about the saxophone sound like a floral bouquet, right? Like as soon as it's like a bouquet of flowers. It's comical. There's a reason that I think that way. The horn, the saxophone is a big cone starting at the mouthpiece to the end of the bell. It's just a large curved cone, and so I like to think about the sonic concept in that nature, right? Like a floral bouquet. Like you're coming out. All right, and then it just kind of spreads out. You don't want a sound that's too focused and too narrow and or too wide, right? Your flowers are going to be all laying off to the side, and nobody's going to want to smell them, and they're going to look tired. And then if it's too tight, if it's too upright, then there's no room. You can't see them. They can't breathe. So I think about the saxophone sound much in the same way. Like you want a good balance of highs and lows, a good spread, and a good focused core all at the same time. You want a good mix of all concepts. So what I'm going to do right now is just play a chromatic scale so you can get a sense of what you would maybe hope to achieve in terms of having evenness of scale across the horn. Yeah, I'll just start at concert D flat, right? Right? So I just went up the chromatic scale right there, but you want to have an even as a scale. You want to be able to jump through register or make register jumps and large octave leaps without making too much of of an effort to do so. Yeah, it's one of the things I was saying that why I love these mouthpieces so much. I'm able to more or less get the same type of feel and sound in response, but I don't have to work nearly as hard to do so, which is really a treat. And they also seem to like I was able to pull out a lot of my old reeds just to do some testing, and this mouthpiece or all of those mouthpieces seem to be a lot more reed friendly. So yeah, that's also something that you want to consider. I don't know if I dove into that too much at the beginning of the video when I was talking about equipment, but your reed selection, like your size, the size of the reed that you select is going to be important, and you want to find a reed that is hard enough to support the sound, yet soft enough to allow you to articulate. Um, and if a reed is too hard, yeah, it will support the sound, but you can't move around. And then if it's too soft, it's going to get all noodly, and it just won't support or sustain. Like when you go to hold a note, that thing will be all over the place. It'll wave. You want that thing to be right there in the middle, and then you can start to color it as necessary. Like if you listen to any great vocalist, I mean, Aretha Franklin, anybody down the line, right? What you will hear is like a subtle vibration or a subtle wave in their sound and that's their signature. Everybody has that. So that's another thing that you can. That's one of you can. If you want to have a checklist of things that you want to execute during your practice session during the day, that would serve to working your dynamic portion or the dynamic element of that exercise, right? Having a good vibrato, right? Not too much. I mean, like, if that's another thing you just have to. I can't really explain that in a few minutes. That's something that people develop over their lifetime. But having the ability to implement a little vibrato or have none at all, your control over that element will really kind of set you apart, because you'll hear some sax players or some vocalists, and the vibrato is just really out of control. And for some people, I mean, I don't know, I guess for a 1920 silent film or something like that, it would be really appropriate, but for modern music, it's just not all that hip to be like, I don't know. I mean, who am I to judge? Go for it. You want to add a lot of vibrato? You know what? I changed my mind. Go for it. But no, you see what I mean. To have a good working control over that element will really add a lot of nuance and presence to your sound, and it's just a sign of seasoning. A lot of seasoning. I think that when I listen to some of my sax heroes, some of the most engaging and most important stuff that I hear is I want to hear these guys play a ballad. You know, I want to hear those notes really speak. You know, if you haven't, you know, for me, it's just perfect. Like if I have a gathering or something, I want to hear some bossa novas and some ballads. For some people, you know, they want to rock it and they want to kick it up a little bit. I want to sit back, smoke a cigar, and get my adult beverage of choice. Give me some Johnny Hartman and, you know, and John Coltrane or you know, like any of the old crooners, you know, the ballads. That's really where it's at. You're going to be able to see the character of someone's sound when you slow it down, and there's nothing to mask it. You know, it's like completely exposed. Yeah, I mean, I just think that just says a lot more about someone's playing. So if you're a sax player and you go online, I already told you, don't believe or listen to a lot of that stuff you see on there. There's a lot of trolls out there, people that just really don't, who would not otherwise have a voice. I'll say that. So don't buy into the hype. Like one of the, I say that to say that one of the things that the guys online say is, you know, what's the key to playing or having a good sound? And everybody just jokingly says long tones. Well, that's not the only thing you need, but there is a lot of truth to that. But the point is, I think that you can effectively achieve doing that simply by playing ballads, because they're slow. You are playing long tones, and you have to sustain these tones. So it's, I mean, it's like it's weightlifting for your chops, you know, for your embouchure, like, because there's no break. You're completely exposed. The sound, you know, when you play a ballad and you really play it sweet, I think that's way more important than blazing. Like, if somebody shows up and they can just cook and then, okay, that's great. But let me hear you play a ballad, you know, and that's going to let me know where you are. You know, this label, you know, like, just be able to lay back and play the melody as it is. All that fast stuff is cool. I'm getting too old for all that. No, but yeah, you should definitely spend some time playing ballads and listening to you know, to some of your, you know, some of the guys that you find pleasing to listen to. There's a ton of guys out there. Every day I discover somebody that I never heard of. I mean, not like an ultimate. I mean, there's a lot of guys today that are just playing their buns off. Yeah, there's a strong community of guys out there. All you have to do is go on YouTube for 5 minutes. You'll find somebody you never heard before that is just amazing, right? And so, yeah, listening is a really important part of the thing, and that'll allow you to understand how to put all these pieces together. Once you do the practice, okay, you've done your scales, right? You've played ballads, you played long tones, you have all these tools in your tool chest. Okay, now you need to put them together. Now you need to make the piece of art. You need to start sculpting. But, you know, not every, you know, I'm sure you got a hammer in there somewhere. We don't always need a hammer. Save that for later, right? But you have all the tools. Now you need to put something together. And it's really important to to just stay focused, stay on it. Like hard work and dedication. There's no substitute for it. Like I get asked questions by by sax players from around the world. I keep in contact, you know, my travels, I've met a lot of sax players, a lot of musicians, and I'll periodically have someone call me and ask me like, hey, what are you playing on right now? What are you working on? And I'm having trouble with this. And how can I get there quicker or easier, whatever. And I'll try to be as helpful as possible, but there really is no substitute for just putting in some time. Like there are some technical things that I can help you with. Like if you're having some difficulty with your son, like I gave a sax lesson to my son yesterday, and he was just having some issues. He couldn't, really get the notes out right. So I was like, yeah, well, take the neck off. Let me see what you got going on. And he didn't have the reed up on the table and straight the way that it needed to. So I just helped him out to, get the reed set on the mouthpiece. So there are some technical things that you definitely want to remove any impediments from your work or from your study. But beyond that, you have to work. There are some things that will inherently prevent you from having any success on the saxophone. Like if you have some technical issues with your mouthpiece, or your mouth, or your reed, any part of the chain, or if your sax is leaking. I know I covered this in the first video, but one of the first things that I do, I didn't hear on this session because I was playing a little bit before we got started, but one of the first things I do when I grab my horn and get it together is I like to play a low B flat to ensure the thing is working properly. It's a conical instrument, starting from the mouthpiece to the tip to the bell. The sound is pretty much going to escape out of the first available hole. And if that's the end of the bell, that's where it is. That's where I want my air to come out. So I'll close all the holes. I'll play a low concert A flat, which is a B flat on the tenor saxophone, and I'll just make sure that it's working properly mechanically first. I want to make sure all the pads are sealing, and then once I achieve that, then I'll start playing. What I mean by that, I'll put it together. Once I have everything, I'm pretending like I'm just starting. I'm going to start my work. So I'll just pick it up. And it's a good test for my embouchure as well. Now, I've already been playing, but I'm talking in between. So just try to play a low B flat once you get your horn together, right? That's another thing you should work on, overtones as well. But yeah, once you get the horn together, just try to play a low B flat to ensure all your pads are sealing. If you can't do that, you should be able to do that. If you've never been able to do that, then your horn is probably not working properly. But if you've established that you don't have any issues playing in the lower register of the horn, if you generally can get down there and move around a little bit, and then all of a sudden you can't, something's probably wrong with your horn, or you've been out of practice for a while, which in that case you need to practice. But that's one of the things that I try to just do whenever I grab my horn, just to ensure that, because if in transit, maybe you knocked it against something's out of alignment, or a felt fell off or something like that. It's a lot of moving parts. Actually, I had a felt fall off of the horn yesterday. I got some Frankenstein stuff going on in here with little paper swedging because of the coronavirus. I haven't been able to get out to my repairman. Just limiting my contact with everyone. So I've had the opportunity to do some saxophone repairs here on my own here at the house, which is lots of fun. But yeah, one of the things I mentioned when I was down in the lower register of the horn, you heard me play a little thing right there at the end. That's the overtone series. That's something else that's going to help you just become much more familiar with your instrument. Yeah, I'll just start on a low B flat and start to play around with the overtone series. And also, what this serves to do is it helps you with your facility above the break, right? If you're playing the saxophone and you have, this is a vintage horn. This is a Silver Mark 6 from '59. All the vintage horns, they don't have an F sharp. I don't know if you can see that, but there's the alternate F sharp. And the modern horns would normally have a key right in there, and that would be your high F sharp. These horns don't have it. So, and F, and F, well, you have to, after the alternate F sharp, that's basically the last note that you can naturally play on the instrument without going into the altissimo, which is what the upper register of the saxophone is called. Now, working on your overtone series will absolutely help you to get a better understanding of how to play up top. A good friend of mine, Seamus Blake, I took a lesson with him when I was up in New York a few years ago. And yeah, I mean, I don't know if you've heard him play. You should. If you haven't, check out Seamus Blake. This guy, he has one of the most amazing abilities to go up in the upper register of the horn. And yeah, the reason I mention him is he helped me out a lot with getting control of the upper register. And yeah, I thank him immensely for all his help. But the overtone series is one of the things that I started working on to achieve some upper register clarity, right? So all I'm doing is just playing a low B flat and closing all the notes, right? Or closing all the keys. And I'm gonna play I'm gonna play the overtone series with that one note, right? Right? So that's one note. Well, what that does, that allows you to hear and feel the harmonics of the horn. Now, I'll give you an example. I'll just play some stuff up in the altissimo. And doing that, like doing this overtone series, will give you a sense of how it feels to play up in the altissimo. It's very similar, right? So working the overtone series will just help you get up in the upper register, and it feels very much the same when you like, you obviously need fingerings to go up in the upper register, but playing the overtone series feels just like playing altissimo. You're blowing overtones through the horn, so definitely work on your overtone series as well. And yeah, I just caught a glimpse of the time and I realized how long I'm gone. We will be putting together an advanced course as well, where I'll dig into some more advanced concepts as it pertains to soloing and harmonic structures. Once again, thanks to Steve and Lee and all the guys over at the Clearwater Jazz Holiday. Our education and outreach program is growing by leaps and bounds, and thanks to all the other clinicians and guys who participated in this. And thank you, everyone out there, for listening and joining us. Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, another fantastic session, Jeremy. Thanks for going the extra mile with us. We really appreciate it. Great stuff today. And I know it will be appreciated and valued by a lot of people who not only participated today, but will be watching these videos and listening to the podcast. You're going to be back with us. You're going to be back with us on August the 5th for an advanced tenor sax session to round out this specific series, which will be great. And for those listening today and watching the video later, in the upcoming weeks, we have some really great folks scheduled with us. Everyone from Valerie Gillespie to Pete Carney to Pat Close and Per Danielson, covering sax and piano and drums and some multi-instrumental courses. And last but not least, I wanted to give a shout out to our friends at the Al Downing Tampa Bay Jazz Association for helping to support what we're doing here and to expand the reach of these sessions, including the session today. So on behalf of the Clearwater Jazz Holiday Foundation and our extended family, Jeremy, thanks for being with us today. Great job, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.